Hello, everybody, and welcome to our presentation, Live Captioning, Make Your Next Event Accessible for Everyone. Slides are going to be available on the DrupalCon website session page.
So we are your presenters. I'm Kimana Botts, and I am presenting with Andy Olson. Andy is a front-end developer from the Chicago suburbs. He's been working with Drupal since 2008. And fun fact about Andy, he's a really, really great musician who has played with his band at Lollapalooza. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, that's just like a really big music festival in Chicago.
And hi, I'm Andrew, and this is Kimana Botts. She is a back-end developer from Northwest Indiana. She is a certified professional in accessibility core competencies, which is a CPACC certification from the organization IAAP, which is the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. A fun fact about Kimana is she proudly ripped her wedding dress playing laser tag at her wedding reception. I think those two things say quite a bit about Kimana and myself, and we're here really excited to talk about live captioning. Specifically, what is live captioning? We're going to talk about how you can bring that to your event and also the benefits beyond the event. And also, we're going to talk about next steps for the initiative of what we're going to do to bring live captioning to a greater audience. With that, I'll have Kimana talk about live captioning.
So first, I'm just going to talk about the general concept of live captioning. In general, the phrase live captioning refers to when spoken words are converted into text, either by machines like computers or by a person that is like physically like typing out or transcribing all the words. And then that text is displayed for audiences that are tuning into something like a presentation or a meeting or something like that. There are like many different types of tools that can do this. Like Android, for example, has built-in live captioning, and we'll talk a little bit more about some professional level captioning solutions. But for the purposes of today, we're going to be talking about live captioning, which is a tool that we developed for use for in-person events. It uses the Chrome browser, which supports the web speech API. And that is a mechanism for converting speech to text on a web page. It communicates with Google servers to perform the conversion from speech to text. And it does that by sending an audio recording to Google, and then the audio is processed and we get back the text. The audio is not sent directly to the page itself, though. It sends the domain of the website that you're using the API from, and your default browser language, and then the language settings of the website. It doesn't send any cookies along with these requests. So when the text is brought back, we use SRT is one of the formats that the text can be converted into. SRT stands for subrip subtitle file, and that contains subtitle information in case you want to use the transcript, this SRT formatted transcript, to sync up with videos. So the SRT is, it contains a sequential number of subtitles and a start and end time code and subtitle text. And this is a thing that you would use if you wanted to, for example, upload transcripts along to accompany like a YouTube video or other playback programs that are pretty popular. And you can also take the written transcripts. You can download them as plain text, and you can put those on your website to accompany the the video if you post it on your website, which has some pretty great benefits that we'll talk about a little bit later. And so now I'm going to pass it to Andy to talk about how the tool is set up and what it looks like in action.
Thanks, Kamana. What you see on the screen is a diagram, and I'm going to walk through the diagram, starting with A and ending with element or item I, starting with A and ending with the item H, and just go bit by bit about how you can bring this to your next live event. So with that, I'm going to point out A, which is very important, is first having a presenter at a live event, and then needing a microphone for the presenter. So as you have this event, the person is presenting and talking, and the microphone is capturing it. What I'm going to do next is go down to the second part of this, where you have B, which is a laptop that is dedicated to live captioning. So the microphone goes into the input of this computer, and this computer is running the live captioning tool, which we'll demo here in a bit, but it's going to be capturing all that, as Kimana was talking about, converting the speech into text. What is then going to happen is we're going to go all the way over to C, which is a monitor for live captioning. And what that does is so everybody doesn't have to gather around the laptop. What it does is it takes the output of what's being displayed on the laptop, but putting it in a monitor for the room to display the live captioning speech to text, which leads us to the item D, which is a reserved section of the audience. What we found at events is it's best to have a good line of sight and a dedicated area for people that do identify that would benefit most for live captioning and being able to read the speech to text on the screen during the event. So we highly recommend with the audience, as you see down below here, just having a reserved section for a line of sight for that person or people. Next, over here, we have item E, which is a volunteer. So this is a dedicated person at your event. We can talk a little bit more about how to enlist volunteers at your event that would be able to be in the room. I know at a lot of Drupal events, but this also goes beyond Drupal. Just having a volunteer that typically does room monitoring, things like introducing the speaker and doing room counts. Well, this person would also have either an added task or another volunteer that would be responsible for making sure that, one, the computer that is capturing speech to text is working, and it's also displaying to the monitor over here. And also that the microphone is in a good spot, that it's picking up the presenter. We'll go through a few things with live captioning about if the signal is not strong, certain things that can happen. But volunteer is pretty essential to helping make sure that it's a success. Next, I'm going to go to F, which is the computer for the presenter. Just have this on here just to point that the presenter is actually going to be presenting slides that are going to be broadcast over here to G, which is the screen for the presentation. But you'll notice that there is no connection or need to connect their computer with the live captioning, because again, we're just converting the speech to text. What we're not doing is taking the speech to text and we're not displaying it on the screen itself. So the good news about that is the speaker doesn't have to adjust their slides or worry about that. We just have a dedicated monitor here that's capturing all the speech to text, and it does not detract away from the person that's presenting. Finally, like any good accessible event, we want to make sure that we have room audio so everybody in the room can hear and appreciate the speaker. So ideally, there's either a room microphone that goes to the, or there's a microphone for the room that directly goes to the room audio. And as you can see at this part, there's either a split. So you can either tap into that room mic and take it to your live captioning, or you can have what Kamana and I have done, just have a dedicated microphone that links directly to the live captioning tool. So the point here is So as you've seen, we've walked through A through H, all the essential elements to have a successful event, and bringing live captioning to the benefit of your audience. So that would be the room setup. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to a live demo. So the great thing about the tool that we've made and what we're talking about today is anybody can do this. All you need is internet access. So the URL you see on the screen is https://lc, that stands for live captioning, .midcamp.org. And so when you go to this URL, this is the page that you're presented with. And first thing I'm going to go through is just briefly how you use it. So when you come to the site, you can roll out the how to use. And as Kamana talked about earlier, you open this page. It does require Chrome desktop browser, so Firefox or Safari do not support this. This is definitely a Chrome browser. Chrome browser and Chrome and Google APIs are what we're using to capture speech to text. What I'll be doing next is clicking to caption. We'll see a prompt for allowing use of my microphone. You'll see I'll start talking and may need to pause occasionally. So with that, what I'm going to do is go ahead and click to caption. And as soon as I click on that, you'll see here's the first thing is the prompt. So what it's saying is the website is wanting to use your microphone. So this is Chrome's way of saying, hey, before we just allow us to capture audio, you have to grant access to it. So as I click allow, I'm going to go ahead and start speaking, and you're going to see the words appear on the screen. Hello, and welcome to our presentation about how to make your next event accessible for everyone using live captioning. This is a demo to show you how the live captioning tool works. Click on the text to return to the home interface. So as you saw, the words were coming up. I clicked on the text to go back to this home interface, and as you'll see here, it created a session for me. So the first session was created, and what I can do is I can either continue and talk, which we'll do here in a second. But what I'll do is we'll click View Selected Session Transcript. And this is the SRT format that Kimana was talking about down here. Is that at time 0, I started talking, hello and welcome. And I'm going to read through this to see how well it captioned. As you can see, I was talking or attempting to talk slowly and clearly and enunciating. And it seemed like it did a pretty good job with picking up my speech to text. You notice that I paused, and then it put in a second entry here at about, a few seconds in. So what's interesting about how it picked up is it said works. It looks like it capitalized works. Maybe it's thinking it's old school Microsoft application works. Who knows? But we're seeing it's doing a pretty good job of capturing my speech to text. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and click on the continue select a session. We'll see how this gets added to it. So if I go ahead and continue, I'll just start talking again, and it's picking it up. My name is Andrew Olson, and my co-presenter is Kimana Batts. Thank you for viewing this demo. I'm going to again click on the text. We'll come back here. What I have to do is I have to click View Selected Transcript again, and then it's picking up this third session. What's interesting about this is as I talk and as this text is being captured, we're using browser storage. And all this is doing is it's, when I click on this button and open it up, it's going to my browser local storage. Again, this is getting a little technical, but that's how it's capturing speech to text, and it's putting it in this browser storage. And now I'm able to go in here and read it. So one thing you can see here is I'll just start talking, and noticed it didn't pick up names very well. So this is a good opportunity that I can correct. So Kimana Batts, and correct some spellings. The other thing that I can do is, so this is SRT format. So the other button down here underneath the input box is to just have text. So this is just straight text. As you can tell, these two were not linked because I corrected the SRT format, but I also would need to correct this. But this is if you just wanted to take all of the text and then use it and copy it into, for example, a transcript on your website. So this allows you to take that, you can make spaces, you can add punctuation and correct misspellings or clarifications if there's a term that it misinterpreted. But overall, that's what the tool is doing. What I'm going to do also is just, I'm going to hit refresh here in my browser. So one thing you'll notice is that I didn't lose anything just by hitting refresh because all the information is still in the browser storage. But what I can do now is, if you see up here, it says start a new session recording. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick and talk a little bit so you can see how you can have multiple sessions within the browser. So for example, if I hit this new session recording, pretend we had an event and the first session was happening. There were some pauses, so you could pause and then continue. But if there's a brand new session, so the event right after, you could click this start a new session recording. So if I click the button and start a new session recording, it will create a new transcripts with new timestamps and will not continue to add to my first session. Please note that the connection may time out after an extended period of time, or if the audio signal is not strong and consistent. To fix, you can press the reconnect button at the bottom of the page. Your second option is just to refresh your browser. One other note I will say is that you can talk really fast and we'll see how well it does picking it up, but it fills up the screen pretty quick. Fun little thing to add. So by me talking and mumbling a bit more, we can look a little deeper at session 2 and see all the different pauses and timestamps. You can also see that I said a fun thing to do, and it says funny looking to add. So we'll move on here a bit in the presentation and talk about how speech to text is good, but it is not perfect, which might be a good lead in to the next slide. So, as I said, that was the live captioning tool demo. What live captioning is not is CART, which stands for Communication Access Real-Time Translation. This is also known as open captioning, real-time stenography, and real-time captioning. So these are real people, and it is not an automated tool. So these, when you think of stenography, you think of like from television, like a court reporter that's sitting at a machine, or closed captioners, which are real people listening to what is happening and typing very quickly. It's a very honed skill. They're trained operators that use keyboard methods to transcribe that spoken word and speech into written text. With that, I'll hand it back to Kimana, talking a bit more about CART.
Thanks, Andy. So yeah, just like Andy said, CART is really great. It's awesome, and the people that operate CART and the like practitioners are just like really great, intelligent people. However, it can be pretty cost prohibitive for events that might not have much of a budget. I know in Chicago, where we both kind of work out of, some of the local meetups have sponsors, and even for Midwest Drupal Camp, which Andy and I are both organizers on the organizing team, we had some really gracious sponsors that came through and were able to help us provide captioning for our attendees, which was great. But not every event is going to be fortunate enough to have sponsors. And to give kind of an overview of some of the different costs of providing these kinds of services to attendees. In 2018, these are some rough estimates of these services. So on-site CART was around $150 per hour. Remote CART, so where you would just have a CART practitioner tune into the event and be doing the transcribing remotely. That was around $125 to $130 an hour. For an American Sign Language or ASL interpreter, it was roughly $81.25 per hour per person. And for deafblind interpreters, it was roughly $93.75 per hour per person. And so again, these are all prices, estimates around from 2018. And for the kind of Chicago area. So yeah, our goal is not to replace CART or interpreters. Our goal is to provide a reliable and no-cost tool to make events more accessible where otherwise they would have nothing to reduce that barrier to entry.
We'll also add, with Chicago Mid-Camp, where we volunteer, as you can see, a remote CART being, or actually on site, 150 per hour. That's just for one person in one room. And at Mid-Camp, we put on a 2-day event with up to 5 rooms. So you can imagine the cost of having one person in a room for 8 hours a day. It can be very cost prohibitive. But again, it's a great service, but with events, it might not be, this is where our tool and where we found a gap where we can maybe do something a little bit better to meet a need in a no-cost way.
Great, thanks for that explanation, Andy. So yeah, we also want to stress that live captioning is for everybody, just like many accessibility features or features that people declare as accessibility features benefit everyone that is around and that uses them. Live captioning benefits everyone, not just people who may have hearing loss or deafness, but also people whose first language might be different from the language that's currently being spoken at the event, or for people who comprehend written word better than just spoken word. Or just in general, people being able to see a like live transcript of what is occurring and like the words that are being spoken. It helps to kind of reinforce some of what the presenter is talking about. If you happen to miss a word or like miss a sentence or something, you can always refer back to that live captioning and get that information. So it really benefits everybody who is utilizing it, not just people who may have a disability. So yeah, I want to move on and talk a little bit more about like where you can find information about our tool. So as Andy demonstrated earlier, the tool is currently live at lc.midcamp.org. We also have a pretty simple site for the project itself called at www.live-captioning.com. The project, naturally, is open source, and you can find the project at github.com/midcamp/live-captioning text. And we also have an open collective. We're on Open Collective at opencollective.com/live-captioning-initiative. And I'll just pass it over to Andy to talk about some of the areas where maybe there can be some improvement.
Yes. So, as we saw when I was speaking very quickly at the end, live captioning is not perfect. There is inaccuracies with speech to text. Again, CART and a real person does a much better job of being able to capture the spoken word. I alluded to when I was demoing the timeout and refresh. One of the things is that we are using a free Google API, and inevitably there is going to be a timeout at some point. So when there is a long session, there may be a need to have a reconnect. Also, as I said when we walked through the diagram, having the microphone near the speaker and having a strong signal helps maintain that API and maintain a signal in that way. Have experienced when I just had a laptop on a table and one of the speakers that was using live captioning was kind of, I'll just call them a low talker. They had a softer voice and it was very difficult to pick up and discern them. They weren't enunciating. Again, no fault of them. It's just a limitation of the tool and a need to have a better microphone. Otherwise, there is a timeout and refresh. As I was demoing, as you can see, there may be a time when the text would need to fall off the page if the person did not take a breath and speak. We've all been in those presentations where somebody is talking rather fast and there is not a natural break for the speech to text to reset. Another thing that we're hopefully working on is the ability to change the size of the text in the interface. I have a good tool identified. Again, it's open source, would love to have help to move that forward, but that is a small limitation. The good news is it is open source, and if you have some CSS or coding experience, you can adjust that on your own when you're in the room, but there's no right now natural interface to change the size of the text. Also, the reason we have it up on lc.midcamp.org, which is great that Midwest DrupalCamp allows us to host the site up there. But there is, if you just download it, there is a need for the browser to remember the microphone settings. Otherwise, it'll prompt you. So if you're in the heat of the moment at an event, it is a little distracting to have the microphone continue to say, are you sure, and prompt you to allow access. But with the lc.midcamp.org, that's not the case because we have the SSL certificate and the browser does a better job of remembering that. But if you were to take it on your own and not serve it over HTTPS or just have it locally on your browser, which does work, or on your local machine, you will constantly get a browser prompt to remember the microphone settings. However, even though live captioning is not perfect, it's free, but also CART is not perfect either. One thing that was interesting when we had CART for the Midwest DrupalCamp this year, there was a noticeable difference between all the great CART people that we had, but some were more technically inclined, I would say, than others. So some of the terms were easier, or some concepts were captured a lot better and quicker than some of the others. So having a CART person that has technical acumen or ability is great. Another thing is, another example of CART not being perfect is I was at a Chicago accessibility meetup with Marcy Sutton and Derek Featherstone, and it was a panel discussion. And for those of you who don't know, those are two great accessibility people to follow. But what was interesting is Derek Featherstone is Canadian, and he was mentioning a a colorblind simulator and contrast checker for Sketch and Figma. And as we were there and he was talking about it, he kept saying stork, um, or stock. It was one of those two, but the point is the cart interpreter wrote it as stock and not stark, as STARK, which is a great plugin for Sketch and Figma. But the point there is, with a little bit of an accent and not understanding possibly what a plugin for that is, it was misrepresented on the screen. And so I had to look it up afterward. And after some Googling, I found it. But that's just a point that CART is also open to missing meaning as well. With that, I'll pass it back to Kimana to talk about the benefits of why to choose live captioning.
Thanks, Andy. So yeah, why would you choose live captioning? Well, first of all, it is free. So it, like I mentioned earlier, we want to provide a no-cost solution. So as long as you have the equipment, you are able to use the tool. So yes, we first of all just wanted to make sure it's free. Secondly, it is already integrated with the Drupal Recording Initiative. So we have worked with Kevin Thole to make sure that this tool works and that the setup works. If you remember the diagram that Andy showed earlier, we have tested integrating the live captioning tool with Kevin's setup. So while the presentations are being recorded at Drupal events, there can also be a pretty low barrier extension to provide captions for your attendees as well. And that brings me to my next point, which is that the live captioning tool lowers barriers for your attendees. People that may not be able to really benefit from having, from attending conferences because they're, typically may not be captioning or services that make the content accessible for them. Being able to have something like live captioning opens up your event to a whole new audience that was previously excluded before. So while also making it easier for current attendees to get the most out of your content. So yes, providing live captioning lowers barriers for attendees. Transcripts can be used as subtitles for YouTube videos. So again, if you're already recording these, presentations and these events, having an SRT, like a subtitle file, generated for your content, allows you to just upload those subtitles onto YouTube and have a little bit more of an accurate representation of the content and what's being said, rather than some of the automatically generated, just if you click the closed captioning button on YouTube, it'll be a little bit more accurate to what is actually going on. Also, posting the transcripts on your website with your videos and stuff has a really great search engine optimization benefit for your site. And I'll actually talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Oh, yep. So after adding transcripts for all of the sessions that were on MidCamp's site, we saw a 14% increase in daily average organic sessions. So this is a really, really huge benefit for very little effort. And we are helping with the usability and accessibility of the site by providing these transcripts, and but we're also increasing traffic that maybe wouldn't have found our content otherwise. So It's just really a whole slew of benefits for just like a very kind of low amount of effort. That also has other benefits and stuff as well. So I would like to also talk about how live captioning has kind of, you know, it is taken on like a little journey of its own, I would say. We initially, you know, were working on this tool with the focus of using it at Midwest Drupal Camp. But just by nature of the internet, there were other people that kind of stumbled across the tool and started using it, which is really great. So like all the way on the other side of the world, another event used our tool to provide captioning for their event. And it was really awesome to see both that this tool that we were working on was being used, but also that like this is making events more accessible all over the world. And so I will pass it back to Andy to talk a little bit more about how you can bring the live captioning tool to your event and some more specifics involved with that.
Thanks, Kamana. Yes, live captioning your event. What you will need to do this using this free low barrier tool is just a computer that has Chrome version 25 plus, so a fairly not bleeding edge version of Chrome, but any Chrome that's higher than 25. You will definitely need internet access, as we talked. Technically, it needs speech to text, needs to go out using those Google APIs to bring back the text and put it in the browser. Next, what you'll need is an external, we recommend an external monitor. I've done some research on different types of external monitors having to do with room size and the size of monitor. So look for a blog post in the future on our live captioning website more about that. But we're assuming that you want in your room at your event to have a dedicated external monitor rather than having people, as we said, gather around one laptop or have their need to bring their own device. You need a microphone for the presenter. Again, you really want that strong signal so there is no connection issues, and you want a clear, precise signal to get the best results. Lastly, highly suggest organizing volunteers. These are people that doesn't require much. It's just a matter of just being in the room, making sure the tool works and the connection works after you have all the setup. So we have, tips to organize volunteers, and that'll probably be another blog post coming soon about how to organize that and get the help you need, because you can't be everything everywhere all at once, and there's definitely people that want to help make the event a success. Next, what I want to do is just have some thank you about where we are today and where we've been. So we would not be here, Kamana and I, talking about this without the help of these people that you see on the slide. So I'm going to briefly talk and go through each one of these people because they've been very important to getting Kimana and I the support we needed to get out there and to be talking about this. So first and foremost, it's MidCamp. The push as we're organizing the event to say, we want to make the MidCamp organization and volunteers are very dedicated to the content we provide to people to make sure there are no barriers, or to lower all barriers for people to experience the content we have and come and join and be a part of this community. It's just a great group of people. And this started with Fatima Sarah Khalid. She was the keynote in 2018, and she was the first one that said, I was thinking about captioning my keynote. Have you heard of this? And she sent a link to David Rupert, who first did an initial code pen who's the third bullet on here, where this all started. And based on that, we were able to cobble together and come up with an approach where we could not only caption Fatima's keynote, but in all the rooms. And that leads us to Burton Kent, who was an individual that was hesitant to come to mid-camp because there wasn't captioning available, and was really hesitant to come. But when we talked about having captioning there, he was able to use the tool to great success and provide really great candid feedback about how to make it even better. So thanks to Burton at that very first mid-camp was very crucial to get to where we are today. Next person I want to talk about is Glenn Blichars. So he's the person that figured out how to write it to the browser and also to be able to save it and share it, and also the timecode format so we can share that on YouTube. Kevin for his ability to integrate with a Drupal recording initiative, and just his advice about how to run a successful open source project. So Kevin's been wonderful. Mike Gifford, who is an accessibility lead in the Drupal community, had a candid conversation with him at a DrupalCon event, just happened to run into him, and provided another great wind in the sails and push to kind of get this out more in the community, and not just the Drupal community, but out to everyone about this free tool to just bring that to everybody's event. JD Flynn, he and I have had some great conversations and done some work about how to allow room monitors make corrections in real time. He has some great ideas about how this could be kind of a hub and broadcasting to a volunteer in the room, so you don't have to wait for that transcript to be done, but to make like real-time corrections as you go. Lastly on this slide, I want to thank Bounteous, the company where I work, to allow me the time to focus on this and put some effort behind this. And same with the Nerdery, where Kimana works. Their dedication to allowing us time when we go to them and say, hey, we want to work on this, or we have this opportunity to speak at this conference, there is no hesitation, and we are really excited about the support to do what we're passionate about. Next, I want to talk about DrupalCon Minneapolis. We're here today talking about DrupalCon Global because, as we know, the DrupalCon Minneapolis was unfortunately canceled. But before it was being canceled, we were in the works with the Drupal Association, and specifically Carliana Copra. She was first heard of the live captioning initiative, and she reached out to Kamana and myself, and the Drupal Association was sponsoring and working to have one room with live captioning at DrupalCon Minneapolis. We were disappointed and sad that DrupalCon Minneapolis did not happen, so we could actually have our room set up with live captioning to talk about this at DrupalCon. But all that said, what we want to stress is that if DrupalCon committed to doing this and they're willing to do it, they see the value in bringing this out there. So if DrupalCon can do this and the Drupal Association sees the value in this, I think it's not a large leap to say your organization or any event, it's definitely at that scale and can definitely help people at your event and make it accessible. So what are the next steps to what Kimana and I are working on and where live captioning is today? So we never stop getting emails from people and friends talking about other captioning tools. We understand that our tool is helpful and free, but there's also some great other paid and other tools that are out there. For example, a latest one is otter.ai. is one that works, and it integrates with Zoom. Thiston is another tool that can take audio and make a transcript out of it. There's also another free site out there called webcaptioner.com. So there's a lot of other great tools out there doing what we're doing as well. But you know, again, we see a lot of value in making this free and generic and bringing it to open source. Next, working on some blog posts and just articles talking about and comparing live captioning versus real-time captioning. We had the advantage of having our live captioning tool next to a cart tool at the exact same event. And so we have the results of side by side and are analyzing those, and that will be an article blog post coming soon. One thing we've talked about is adding transcripts to Drupal TV. Right now, Drupal.tv is a great website. That's a great place to see all Drupal video content, but transcripts are not available. As you heard earlier, we were able to add the transcripts to the MidCamp site, and it really helped with accessibility and the searchability of the site. So we need to reach out to the Drupal.tv people. Virtual meetings, we're now in a virtual age of meetings. We've talked about what are ways that we could possibly integrate this free tool with Zoom. So that's some discussions we've had. As I mentioned earlier, JD Flynn talking about how to view on your own device versus having an in-room monitor. So it would be great to be able to just walk in the room and connect to the room and not have to look up at a screen and have your own device to capture. Finally, a language selector, not just thinking, US or even Drupal, like this could definitely be a tool that can be global and help audiences all around the world. Also, some next steps. So we have a lot on our mind. We're very passionate about this and we would love some help. So for DrupalCon, we will definitely be at Contribution Day. On the screen, you see myself and Kimana, both of our Twitter handles and our Drupal handles. So don't have all the details at this time of recording, but these are ways to find us and reach out to us and find a way to get involved. Once again, these are the websites. lc.midcamp.org is a place anybody can go to start playing with the tool in its current state. Livecaptioning.com is where we're going to have articles and some more information about the project. We're open source. We're on GitHub, so you can find us at live-captioning text. And we have an open collective as well for donations. So that's another thing we're working on to figure out how that will all work. Finally, so this is a recording for the DrupalCon library. We appreciate your time, but you can also see us live DrupalCon Global on July 15th. Really want to thank you. And Kamana, do you have any other final words here?
Just want to also echo thank you. We hope you use our tool to make your next event more accessible.
Thanks, everyone. See you at DrupalCon Global.